partners with the CIA, and they didn't want this information to get out in the 9/11 report. But that's what's happening. But let me tell you what the other Wahhabist killers did, because, you know, Saudi Arabia beheads more people than ISIS does in their own country under Sharia law. But let's look at what the Wahhabist killers did in the Bataclan. They say they apparently gouged out eyes. They castrated victims. They shoved their testicles in their mouths. They may have disemboweled some poor souls. Women were stabbed in their genitals. All the torture was, victims told police, filmed for Daesh, or the Islamic State propaganda. For that reason, medics did not release the bodies of torture victims to the families, said investigators. But prosecutors, what did they tell the public and the media? The French government said these were just a rumor. They said, well, you know, we found some sharp knives there, but it was just a rumor. It was shrapnel that caused all these injuries. Now, here's some of the testimony. I want you to hear this, because I want you to understand, if we do not stop Hillary Clinton and John Kerry and this policy of bringing war into the United States by bringing in these jihadi terrorists, and as I said before, you only got 1% of the million that Hillary Clinton wants to bring in just in 4 years. Okay, that's 10,000 of these people. Let's take it down to a tenth of that, okay? Let's say that they're 99.9% vetted, okay? That 99.9% of these people are fine. But we get 1/10 of 1%. That's 1,000 of these people. What did they do? What did they do? I want you to think about this. This is your future. This is the future of you, of your children, of your grandchildren, if you don't stop this. I don't care if they call me a racist xenophobe who is a religious bigot. I want to tell you what these people did and why they need to have extra special permission to come here from certain countries. And I think we need to get out of their countries and stop killing them as well, okay? We need to get some of these people that are in Washington out right now. But here's what these Wahhabists did. Here's a question. This is for the information of the Commission inquiry, they said. Can you tell us, they're talking to one of the investigators, how you learned that there had been acts of barbarism within the Bataclan? Beheadings, eviscerations, eyes gouged out. And the investigator said, well, after the assault, we were with the colleagues at the Passage Saint-Pierre, Amelot, when I saw weeping from one of the colleagues who came outside to vomit. And he told me what he had seen. And he says, acts of torture happened on the second floor. And he said, bodies have not been presented to families because there were beheaded people there. The murdered people, people who had been disemboweled. There were women who had had their genitals stabbed. And he said, all of this would have been videotaped for Daesh? And he says, I believe so. Survivors have said so. Elsewhere, the investigator says, women were sexually tortured, stabbed in their genitals, their eyes were plucked out. People were decapitated. The committee chief pressed the investigator on whether the victims were decapitated or mutilated. He stated the authorities had given out conflicting information that said the victims were merely shot or blown up. The president of the committee replied with this damning statement about one victim's father discovering the gruesome truth in their morgue. Okay, here's your tragedy, folks. This is a tragedy that awaits for you if you simply think that Hillary Clinton's 1 million migrants are helpless people who need to come in here, and it's simply a statistic. This is what the father said when he saw his son in the morgue. On the causes of the death of my son at the Forensic Institute in Paris, I was told, and what a shock it was for me at that moment, that they had cut off his testicles, had put them in his mouth, and he was disemboweled. When I saw him behind the glass, lying on the table, a white shroud covering it up to the neck, a psychologist was with me, and he said, this is the only presentable part of your son's left profile. I found he had no right eye. I made the remark. I was informed that they had punctured his eye and sliced down the right side of his face, where there was a very large hematoma that we could all see. This is the hatred that has been carefully cultivated by the CIA and our American policy, being brought home to our country without your consent, in spite of the law, without any vetting. This is the policy of Hillary Clinton. And you can look at what other people have said on the reviews that are there. Now, I was talking just before the break about Hillary and her solution is more intelligence. But maybe we need to have some more intelligence about what's going on really at the borders. You know, Clinton has said that she wants to resettle essentially 1 million Muslim migrants during her first term. This is a math done by Breitbart. They say between 2001 and 2013, it's a 12-year period, the U.S. permanently resettled 1.5 million Muslim migrants on green cards. However, under Hillary Clinton's stated proposals, Muslim immigration would grow substantially faster, adding nearly 1 million Muslim migrants into the U.S. during her first term alone. So, in other words, 3 times faster than it's been going on in the last 12 years. Now, you say, well, I don't know if she would speed it up, if she'd be able to speed it up that much. Well, realize this. John Kerry was bragging on Wednesday, the day before this happened in Nice, France, the day before this terrorist event happened yesterday. So 2 days ago, John Kerry was bragging that he had increased Muslim immigration by sixfold. And so what Breitbart is saying is that Hillary Clinton will increase it by at least threefold. I think that's a very conservative estimate. As Alex was saying earlier, you know, when they tell you that they're bringing in 10,000, no, it's a lot more than that. That's just what they're telling you they're bringing in. Now, this is what John Kerry said the day before this terrorist attack yesterday. He said the Obama administration will meet its target of settling 10,000 Syrians in the U.S. by the time fiscal year 2016 ends on September 30th. Now, he announced this the night before at an end of Ramadan reception at the State Department. An end of Ramadan reception. He comes out and he says, great, we're going to bring 10,000 more of you in here. Okay, and he says, this is a different kind of immigration. This is refugee immigration. He says, this is different from the normal process of migration. It's not green cards, because I just read you this statistic about green cards, okay? That was 1.5 million coming in on green cards in 12 years, ending in 2013. But he says, no, this is different from the normal process of immigration. It's different from green cards and becoming a citizen and so forth. That's what he said. He says it's a very different category. Here's his quote. It's different from a normal process of migration and green card and becoming a citizen and so forth. It's a very different category, said Kerry. He also said it's representing a sixfold increase over what we did the year before. He's so happy. 6 times the number of Muslims. How many of these people have they been able to vet? Okay, let's do a little bit of math, okay, from our brilliant politicians. And you need to understand this as well. We bring in 1 million people, and only 1% of them are terrorists. How many terrorists have we brought in? 10,000. 10,000 people like that guy yesterday. You want 10,000 people like that in the United States? You know, most of these people coming in are young, healthy, strong. That's what they were saying in the town where George Clooney has his Italian mansion. They said, well, you know, we don't mind helping people, but these guys coming in here, they don't want to do any work, and they're big and strong. They don't look like refugees. You know, it's not really families that are coming in. These are big, strong guys coming in. You have to understand, this is an army that they're bringing in. This is a deliberate design of chaos that they're bringing in. And when we look at these things, these are simply statistics. Remember what Stalin said. He said 1 death is a tragedy, but 1 million deaths is a statistic. Well, you know, 1 million migrants coming in who are going to kill you is just a statistic, right? Let's look at some of the specifics about the people who died, because these are personal stories. And as I read these stories, I want you to think about your future, your family's future. Are you going to be killed in a terrorist attack by maybe, you know, 1% or even 0.5%? Okay, even if they took it down to 0.1%, let's say they vetted these people and they admit they're not vetting them at all. They're not vetting them at all. They're not even making an attempt. They don't even know how they would do that, okay? They don't know or care who these people are. They're just bringing them in and calling them refugees. First, they go to their country, drop bombs, kill people, do assassinations, blow up families, get the people good and angry, and then say, come on, let's send your young men over here, military age, come on over, we'll call you refugees. I mean, what could possibly go wrong? They know what's going to go wrong. That's why they're doing it. They've been creating wars in countries across the world long before I was born. They'll go into a country and they will arm both sides in the war. We're seeing that happen in Syria. We see it happen in all these different places throughout the Middle East, other places as well. Understand the people who have been doing this throughout the world are now going to be doing it here in America, arming both sides, creating a conflict for their own purposes, to serve their own interests. So as you hear that a Texan and his 11-year-old son were on a family vacation, they decided they would go to the Riviera. They would take a European vacation to the Riviera. And they were some of the people who were killed yesterday. Is that going to be you? Is that going to be your family? More specifically, let's go back to the Bataclan massacre where they went in and attacked that movie theater. This is an exclusive from Heat Street. And they have testimony here from investigators and the Commission of Inquiry in France. And what it shows here is that the French government suppressed news that there was torture in that massacre, in that concert. This is a story that I think is up on Drudge Report. A French government committee has heard testimony suppressed by the French government at the time, not released to the media, that the killers in the Bataclan tortured their victims on the second floor of the club. Wahhabist killers, Wahhabists, the Saudis, okay? And today we had the 28 pages declassified, and guess what? I haven't had a chance to read this, but it's no surprise. I was told when they handed me this article that it has Prince Bandar featured in there prominently. You know, our ally, Prince Bandar, the guy who is an honorary CIA member. These are the people that we have allied with. These are the people who created the petrodollar with us. You know, when Nixon and Kissinger took us off the gold standard with Bretton Woods II, they immediately said, well, you know, we got to have something to make the currency valuable. We're not connecting it to gold anymore. The whole world had seen through the fraud. They were printing so much paper, there wasn't any way they had the gold to back it. So they just said, all right, we're going to get rid of that pretense, but we're going to come up with a different idea. We're going to back our currency by having Saudi Arabia denominate oil in American dollars. We're going to work with Saudi Arabia. Of course, they're going to buy our worthless treasury bills, give them value. They're going to buy a lot of our treasury bills. We're going to make them unbelievably rich, and then we will also arm these people, and they will support us by making our fiat currency the world reserve currency. And so we've been working with these Wahhabist killers in Saudi Arabia. We created them, and they are business partners with the CIA, and they didn't want this information to get out. That's absolutely right. You know, when we look at the solutions that Hillary is offering us in the wake of this, she's come out before saying that every time there's a terrorist attack, she wants to step up the surveillance state. And she's come back to say that again. She's now saying, well, we need an intelligence surge. I think that's a good description of what happened with her private email server. It was an intelligence surge for the other side. That's where we saw the intelligence surging out of this country. Now, when we come back, I'm going to talk about what happened in France in light of the French Revolution. You know, they were celebrating Bastille Day, and I think there's a lesson to be learned from the arrogance of France's president there, as well as the hypocrisy of what he was doing on Bastille Day. And we're going to take a look at the true tragedy, the individual stories that haven't been told. You know, a million is a statistic, but one person's dead. Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight, your host for the rest of this hour, this fourth hour. You know, we've seen now Hillary Clinton's response to all this, and it's that she thinks that we need an intelligence surge. As I said before, that's what we've seen with her. Every time we have an attack, remember back in March, I think it was, the Brussels attacks, okay? She called for more surveillance then. You go back and look at every time there's an attack. She wants to increase the police state, the surveillance state. That's her response to everything. And of course, where is the press pointing out the hypocrisy of this person saying, well, you know, we need to have more intelligence. We need to be smarter in the way we approach this. This is the person who put the most highly classified documents in our government on display for everyone to get in her unsecure private server. And, of course, that's had a real cost for her. It's been pointed out in this AP story. Hillary Clinton enters the summer damaged by perception she violated the law by using a private email system. perceptions? It's not perceptions, AP. That was the profession of the FBI director. Okay, and as one guy says later on in that same story, they talked to a 57-year-old Republican. He says, well, she's innocent until proven guilty. But to me, the FBI director called her guilty and then gave her a pass. That's exactly how that was my reaction to it when I was watching it with my wife. I said, I can't believe this. I didn't think he was going to do anything to Hillary. And here he is. He's admitting that she committed hundreds of felony charges here, that she sent and received classified emails on her personal server. And then he goes on to say, well, that's okay. Nobody in their right mind would prosecute her because, you know, she's a Clinton, and we know what happens to people when you come after Clintons, right? But then he goes on to say, don't you try this at home. And you know what? This is the problem. They say that on the Hill, they say Democrats are freaked out about these polls and private meetings. We've heard in the past couple of weeks, you know, this is the never Trump narrative. They were all saying, well, you know, we just got to get Donald Trump out of the, we can't have him be the nominee because it's just going to destroy our Senate candidates. It's going to destroy us down ballot. And now the Democrats are saying this. The Hill says nervous Senate Democrats raised concerns with Hillary Clinton during a private meeting on the Capitol yesterday over recent polls showing Donald Trump leading or tied in several battleground states. They said some people were freaked out. They were looking down at the polls on Real Clear Politics and asking why it was so close. She said, well, you know, there's other issues. People are unhappy and they don't trust institutions. Hillary Clinton is the very embodiment of our political institutions. She's the very embodiment of corrupt political institutions that have come to be the hallmark of the American government. For example, one of these battleground states is Florida, and they had a Quinnipiac poll that was just done, showed her behind by 4 points in Florida to Donald Trump. Now, just last month, she was ahead by 8 points, and that's a key state. There are certain states that are going to definitely go Republican. Certain states are definitely going to go Democrat. That's just baked into the way those states are. But then, of course, there are states that can go either way that have large numbers of delegates, states like Florida, Ohio, Pennsylvania, where she is not doing well. And she's not doing well nationally because of this hypocrisy. But again, an intelligence surge, talking about how we need to work with NATO. That was another thing she said yesterday. Maybe somebody should explain to her what the purpose of NATO is. NATO was a North Atlantic treaty organization. Their stated purpose was to address the threat of the Russian communists. It's one of the reasons why Donald Trump says they're obsolete. They're trying to invent a new mission for themselves. And, of course, when things get really tough, we've seen in the past that NATO was involved in the Operation Gladio in Italy, posing as Red Brigade terrorists, kidnapping the Italian Prime Minister, Aldo Moro, executing him eventually. Okay, those were NATO undercover people grabbing arms that were placed behind in case Western Europe was overrun by a rapid blitzkrieg-like Soviet invasion that never happened. But when they saw the communists moving up in the polls in Italy, they started doing their own false flag terrorist attacks. It was Gladio. You can look it up. It's a matter of record. It's not talked about much in the United States, but it's very well known in Italy. They did an investigation. And they weren't going to cover this up after a popular prime minister was kidnapped and killed. So, yeah, NATO's got to function, and but that's not really who we need to work with. I'm surprised you didn't say that that we need to ask NATO what to do, because that's what Leon Panetta, the Secretary of Defense, the CIA director that was put in by Obama, that's what he said in that famous exchange with Senator Sessions, going back and forth, saying, well, we'd talk to NATO, we'd talk to the UN, we'd talk to our other allies. And Senator Sessions says, well, you would get a vote from Congress before you would commit troops, right? No, I don't think so. Stay with us. When we come back, we're going to talk about what was behind the Bastille Day, the arrogance and the corruption of the French government and the open borders. Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David.